Hello everyone, this is Lying Figure, and today we are playing, much to my dismay, Silent Hill Homecoming. So if the video seems a bit small or stretched, that is because I've had a hellish and horrible time attempting to get the game to capture correctly using different software. Oh good, got a nice shitty video here. No, be quiet. Okay, we're at the main menu. So I've had a hell of a time trying to get this to work. I've done just about everything, to the point where now I will just have to crop the video, because I'm playing in windowed mode, because nothing seems to work. It's just awful. The game is made so poorly in every single way. I started this channel as a passion project to talk about Silent Hill. I'm still very passionate about this game, but just in a less loving fashion than I am of the first 4 games. This game is just awful. So let's take a look at some of the stuff that we can find around in the menu. So you can tell this game was, they put in zero effort, just absolutely zero effort into making it a PC port at all. See, this was released on Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and PC. Should never have been released on PC, which is what I'm playing it on, because you can see the use button is button 0. That would be left click, the most important button on a computer. They didn't even bother to put in left click. They didn't even bother. So it's a terrible thing. The audio menu is completely messed up. I'm going to turn down the radio a bit. I've been testing this for a while, and I get so annoyed with the loud sounds in the game that I turned all the sound effects down. Every time you turn the game off, it will get rid of every setting you've changed, and it will forget them all. It doesn't save any of them. And also there's the fact that half the sound effects will play even if you turn all of this to 0, which is the sign of a poorly made game. Alright, so we're gonna start the game. I will be quiet. If anything ever happens where I leave the window or something goes wrong, it's not my fault. That the game just randomly crashes very often. I have the latest patch version, but it's still known to crash very often. Saves get corrupted. It's just a bad game. So let's hit new game and start this joyride. So we're gonna play on normal, because the easier the experience is, the better. And the display brightness, as you can tell, is just way off. I can turn it all the way up or all the way down, and it does not change at all. So we're just going to leave it about here. Better to be a little too bright than a little too dark, otherwise we can't see the whole game. So yeah, just completely broken. That's broken for most people, it would seem, from my searches. Anyways, let's hit accept, and I think the game should start now. First thing you'll notice in the loading screens, well, I'll talk about it later. A cutscene is about to start.
Where's my squad? Are they here? Did they make it? Hey, talk to me. Say something. Oh, God. Oh, God! Hey, what are they doing? What's going on there? Hey, where are you taking me? No. Hey! No. Where am I? Hey, what is this place? Hey, where are you taking me? No! Where am I, man? Hey, wait. Where are you going? Don't leave me here!
Okay, so I now think I can see some stuff in the background. The doctor who wheeled us in here is just being stabbed to death. And now we get a great prompt that definitely doesn't break our immersion at all. This is the sign of a good Silent Hill game, is you start off with a QTE. And pretty much completely out of sync sound there. Turn on our flashlight. Looks fine. You know, the game it's not bad graphically for the most part. I mean, the textures aren't good, but it looks fine lighting wise. So I just want to point out the very first thing we see in the game is the loading screen. And the loading screen uses beta images, or images from when the game was in the beta or earlier development stages, in which our main character here had blonde hair that was a bit shorter. And they did not take the time to change those or switch them out, so instead you get to stare at the stupid loading screens and think, why is my character blonde? Just to point out another silly thing, well, this is a lore play. In all my other lore plays I describe lore. Mostly I'm going to be using the lore in this lore play to explain why these things are bad. But I'll explain one neat thing, which is we're being wheeled in here on a hospital bed and we're seeing horrible things as we move our head around, and that's basically the premise to the most famous scene from Jacob's Ladder, which is probably the biggest, most influential piece of any media on Silent Hill. So just worth noting, but I mean, nothing profound. So let's see, looks like the lock is broken, I can't open it. So I just want to point out that not only do they not even say left click, they couldn't even, okay. So you saw at the beginning there that in the top right it had a click your mouse rapidly, a little symbol to let us know what to do, how to break free from these shackles. They couldn't even take a static image of that and put it here. They just put a little shitty scary symbol next to the open. Now in the console versions that has the A button or the X button to tell you how to open the door. But on this version, the PC version, they couldn't even take the time to put the left mouse icon there. They even had the icon on everything, they just didn't bother. So let's leave the first room of the game, in which we spent a few minutes already talking about how terrible it is. First, let's take a look at this doctor's memo. And you'll notice not only is it incredibly low resolution, but it's also, it's basically just a close-up of a shitty model, and then it just crops off very, very clearly there, right above a doctor's memo. It's not centered. They didn't even try. The patient in room 206 is scheduled to undergo a transorbital lobotomy tomorrow. I've mandated that the following medications be doubled on the day of the procedure. I thought lobotomies were obsolete. Who scheduled this procedure? Okay. Excellent note. You'll notice it didn't add to any journal that we have or anything like that, like in the other games. So maybe that will change later. You actually can examine things in the environment, various surgical items, but it's only very random things, nothing useful here. What happened here? It looks to be a vaguely bloody or dirty sink. Old medical supplies. So yeah, nothing exciting here. And I just want to say, this controls really horribly. Your character has no weight. The mouse, I have the sensitivity, I had to turn it down about, like pretty much halve it from where it was by default, and it's still incredibly sensitive. Let's open this door. Must be an iron lung. It looks old. Excellent. The writing in this game for the flavor text, for those who don't know, is the text that you get when you examine certain items to sort of give a feeling. In the other Silent Hill games, this was used to give subtle hints as to how you're supposed to feel, or to describe things without being too overt. So for example, you can find some bloody handprints in one area in a game. In Silent Hill 2, I think, you find bloody handprints. And when you examine them, instead of the text saying, is this blood or something, just out, just melodramatic. It says red handprints and then ellipses. It creates a certain atmosphere. It's the sort of writing that it's an old dirty mattress. Like it says nothing. It says nothing. It's an old dirty mattress. Flavor text is not meant to just describe things. It's meant to give detail where the model or the game world couldn't. That's why in the old pre-rendered background days, you'd have flavor text to make it feel more like you were in the environment, in the world, to immerse you. This game doesn't really seem to know what it's meant to do. It just seems to say, well, that describes something. Old medical supplies. It does nothing. And there's a nice blood trail here. It's barely red looking, I guess. Sink is, just look at this. The sink is empty. The sink is empty. The sink is empty. That's the best they could come up with. Just leave the flavor text out if you're gonna do that.
Josh, is that you?
Josh, is that you? So this little boy is laughing about Alex. We can try to open this, but the gate is locked, and there's a keypad here that controls it. But we don't know, what to do with it yet, so... Again, literally every symbol, literally every user interface, UI as they call it, symbol that tries to instruct you what to do, it's just a bastardization of the Halo of the Sun symbol from Silent Hill 3. It doesn't instruct you what button to click. Here we can find a note, again poorly cropped. Missing patient bulletin. Room 205, patient went missing. Last seen in the day room after a confrontation with another, ellipses. The rest of the message is blurred and illegible. Okay. You know what? Fair enough. Lock is broken on this door. Let's go through here. Something is scratched on the surface of the X-ray. Looks like 624. And here we can see... I know there's a way to go into first person somehow. Oh, there's our excellent inventory. But basically we can see it's just a little kid skeleton, cracked up skull, other things, X-ray. Nothing too exciting. The filing cabinets are empty. Excellent. It's a map of the hospital. And this is the map of the hospital. These are a remnant, an artifact of the old Silent Hill games. They serve almost no gameplay purpose because every area is completely linear. Whereas in the older games you could explore door by door, go in whatever pattern you want, whatever floor you want. These maps are here to give you the impression, the false impression, that there is some sort of environment they built for you to explore. Because exploration is a very, very important part of Silent Hill games. So instead of actually putting in exploration, they decided it was probably better if they just left it out and they gave you a map to make you think maybe there is. And we can look at our objectives here. Escape from the hospital. Again, objectives in a Silent Hill game. It's all about atmosphere, it's all about, emotional drama, it's all about psychology, it's about the supernatural cult. It's not, a Call of Duty game where you have objectives and mission markers to complete. And these are the little things that nobody really mentions, but when you add them all together, I know I'm nitpicking a bit, but when you add them all together, it's not a horror game, really. I mean, it's a horrific game, but it's not a horror game. And I'll show you the most horrific part. If you click zoom, they don't bother to center it, they don't bother to put the map in the middle. They literally just make your cursor a little magnifying glass, and then you have to move it around. And it's so bad. It's unbelievably bad. So you got Josh there, the keypad, and nurse center question mark. Cool. So you got the hospital map. Current objectives can be seen for the map menu. It's a control panel for the PA system. It doesn't appear to be working. There's a little typewriter. I would say the typewriter and that note look a lot more interesting than this control panel, But of course we can't get any flavor text for that, or what the note might say. Because the people who made this didn't care. By the way, this was made by Double Helix Studios. The head guy was Tom Hewlett. This is sort of Tom Hewlett's baby, and as I've said many times, he's the worst thing to ever happen to Silent Hill. As opposed to someone like Sam Barlow, who made Origins and Shattered Memories, who actually tried to do something original, but at the same time capture the spirit of Silent Hill. He does an okay job, especially in Shattered Memories. He tries, and he writes a good story, and it's a pretty good game overall. Homecoming, though, Tom Hewlett's baby, just trash. Sam Barlow wasn't involved, Climax Studios, Team Silent, none of them were involved. Looks like the lock is broken. This guy is never going home. Excellent. What does this say? Are these patients? What are all these corpses doing here? There's a baby crying in the distance. What's going on here? Oh God, how horrible. This is no way to treat the dead. Poor soul. So again, literally every single one of these bodies, I appreciate that they gave a unique description for every single one, but they really come off as more comedic than anything. I mean, nobody above the age of 5 thinks that dead body in a body bag is scary in and of itself. You have to do something more creative with it. But apparently this is supposed to create a horror atmosphere. It's another iron lung. Cool. Let's go in this room with the crying baby. And we'll see the crying baby noise comes from this thing. A child's doll. It appears to be burned. I wonder how it got in here. And the baby stopped crying. So I guess this is just some incinerators in the room, and somebody put a doll inside of it. How scary. Here is one of the biggest travesties about Silent Hill Homecoming. In the old games, and I want to say this is a lore play, but I'm going to be talking a lot about game design, so if you're not really interested in that, you might want to just skip ahead for a few seconds. But in the old Silent Hill games or Resident Evil games, an item in the environment was your character would look at it to tell you there is an item there. Your character's head turns, and you can see it does happen in this game. You can see that Alex's head, Alex is our main character, is turning because there's an item of interest there. And you know what? Good for them that they put that in the game. In fact, I'm glad they did. The problem comes when you don't trust your player enough to notice that, and you instead get a completely immersion-breaking, golden flashing sheen around little objects like this health drink here. So just imagine it's completely black in here, it's pitch black. We have a scary horror game going on. I'm scared to move forward. The tension is high. The Akira Yamaoka soundtrack is playing. And I'm completely immersed. It's nighttime. It's close to Halloween. And then I get close to this item, and even in the dark, completely bright, completely flashing sheen of an object. And what that does is it just says, oh yeah, I'm in a video game. So you're completely immersed in the horror, you're scared, and then you see this and you say, oh yeah, it's just a game. Because they just didn't trust the player's intelligence enough. Here's something that's pretty bad about the item picking up, is that there's a strange fisheye sort of effect on this menu, so the bottom will kind of distort depending on which way you put it, and it just looks bad overall. And incredibly low resolution texture, even lower than any of the models in the older Silent Hill games that came out 5-10 years, even more prior. But we got our first health drink, and there's a note here. Again, the exact same texture as we saw earlier. Low resolution, cropped poorly. It's a different note, but it still looks awful. A page from an incident report. The patient proceeded to leap through the window and then ravaged the adjacent room. The patient was not responsive to verbal commands. 3 staff members eventually subdued the patient. The patient entered a catatonic state and stopped responding to outside stimuli. Restraints were unnecessary during the following week's electroshock therapy sessions. Okay. Restraints were unnecessary during following week's electroshock therapy. Even if you don't shock a catatonic person, at least usually not. And most importantly, restraints are necessary whether a person is freaking out or not during electroshock therapy, because you're going to break your bones, or your muscles involuntarily contract. You can smack people around you, you can fall off the table, all sorts of that stuff. For those who don't know about psychology, a catatonic state essentially means you go numb, you just stare off in the distance, you don't really move, you don't do anything, and it can last for years, it can last for a short time, and it just goes on and on. You're essentially mentally dead. So, but it doesn't change the fact that when you get electroshock therapy, you thrash like nobody's business because of the electro stimulus on your muscles. That restraints are not used during electroshock therapy because people resist and because they're crazy and trying to break away. It's because your muscles contract without your permission. It's why tasers are effective. Even, the note writing in this game, it's god awful. Somebody could have corrected that, just remove the last line and it's a fine note. But nobody cared. And you know what really keeps me immersed in a Silent Hill game? When I'm clanking through these heavy metal objects, and I'm just, I'm running into things like this. It's just everything. We get a nice hop over animation here. Examine. Basic weapons combat. Today's soldier needs to be prepared for the rigors of training and beyond. These are techniques that are going to keep you alive out in the field. Equipping a weapon. To equip a weapon, open the weapon menu and select your weapon of choice. So again, this is not even a note or a tutorial. They could just tell you when you pick up a weapon. Instead of this, they give you a straight up immersion breaking, fourth wall breaking, open the weapon menu and equip it. And then tap the right buttons, and it's just all these little details. I already know how to do the combat. It's incredibly simple and awful, so I'm not even gonna bother reading all this. But the fact that literally everything breaks the immersion, not to mention the fact that in other Silent Hill games you don't get these massive prompts, let's say examine or hop over or investigate, because you didn't need them. The game design was done in such a way to not break your immersion, to not make you say, oh yeah, I'm in a video game. It points out certain things using lighting or camera angles or subtle things like the head turn, but this game does away with those completely for no apparent reason other than that they just didn't really notice why those were important, or they just didn't care. Here's just the X-ray film we can take. So we'll take that and take it back to the other X-ray place. And we're about to get probably the scariest thing in this entire game, so brace yourself, put on your diapers, your Depends, because this is gonna scare the socks off of you. So the sign of a good psychological horror game is when you walk forward and the ceiling collapses and a corpse comes out. That's just really frightening, isn't it? God damn. What an awful game. So that's, right there is pretty much the death stamp for this is a Silent Hill game. A real Silent Hill game would never do that. Oh, here's another note. Our security has been somewhat compromised. A patient used an X-ray film to write down the code for the security gate. We recovered the first half, but the second half is still missing. Should you find the missing X-ray? So, solve this puzzle without knowing that, and I didn't remember the puzzle at all. But I guess they had to hold the hand of the player so much that they had to add that note in. Of course, it's incredibly obvious that all you have to do to complete the code is put this next X-ray film here. 624872. Easy enough. And there we got a journal symbol, which is nice because it means that essentially we will only be able to remember things that are story essential instead of, picking up well-written notes and being able to check our notebook for them later. I just want to talk about really quickly before we go forward the inventory here. we have two inventories, one for weapon and one just inventory. I want to point out how silly that is. So one has the flashlight, I can turn it on and off. One has the radio, I can turn it on and off. Of course, the weapon wheel makes sense. When we get weapons, it'll be here. But weapons are part of your inventory. Like by definition, that's what an inventory is all the items you have on your person. So why you would have two different screens, one weapons and one inventory, I don't know why they did this. You could have just done a classic Silent Hill inventory and it would have made a lot more sense. Flashlight and radio, they're not weapons. The health drink and the first aid kit, you could say if this is the combat menu, then it would make sense that these would go there, but they're not. So why is there a weapons menu if it's not a combat menu? There's an inventory. I can't even, like... It just breaks my mind how poorly designed the game is. Oh, sorry. I have to clear it first. 624872. The door, so in case the loud clicking and the fact that it turns green doesn't let you know, the developers decided to put a massive "the door is unlocked" sign there.
Josh, where are you going?
See ya, Josh. So Josh ran away. It updated our objectives. I got the child's drawing. And this looks great. It's 3 pigs. Let's try this door. Does not open. I'm gonna take a while, I guess, and see this door doesn't open either. Yep. So I just want to point out, if we look at our map here. Oh, I forgot, there's actually 3 inventory menus, because there's also the objectives and zoom thing. There is actually no notebook or journal, it's just the objectives menu. That's great. And let's hit zoom here and I'll just talk about this. So we started in the operation theater. We came to the operating room. We went over here, grabbed the key, we came back, and every one of these, this door is locked. All these, this door, although we got in that room. This door right here, the door in front, again, even the door on the side, it's very clearly leading us in a strictly linear pattern to this one place, the men's bathroom. But the fact that they give you the map is their clever way of making you think, perhaps, that the game is not shit. Here's a mirror effect. Of course, Silent Hill is famous for always doing mirror effects very well. This one is worse than even in Silent Hill 2, which looked amazing. They had to blur the mirror for really no reason other than that they were lazy. The fact that it shows up at all and isn't just cracked and broken is, you know, applaud to the developers, praise to them. Let's open this bathroom. And you know what scares the heck out of me in a Silent Hill game? He's dead. It's hard to tell what happened to him, but I don't want to stick around to find it. So what scares the heck out of me about Silent Hill, and the reason I love it so much, it's not because it's full of symbolism, it's not because there's thought behind every environment and the other world and every single enemy. It's not because the sound effects are done just a way to scare you, it's not because certain scares are randomized. It's because I really get scared by blood, and I really get scared by low resolution models, you know, that are cut in half. That kind of thing really scares me. That's why I play the riveting psychological horror series Silent Hill. It's because cockroaches and this, they really disturb me to my core. So here's the excellent save symbol here. Obviously a bastardization of the Halo of the Sun from Silent Hill 3. They just simplified it to make it easier to render and draw. And that's me testing that earlier. So you'll be able to see all the saves that I make and what time I'm playing the game. I woke up early this morning. This reminds me, I wanted to say, it's been about 2 weeks since I uploaded the last part of Silent Hill Origins, I've been playing Amnesia and Outlast and Silent Hill Shattered Memories and doing everything possible to record those and play them, but it's just not worked out. And Homecoming was very hard to get my hands on without paying $40 for it. So that's why it's been so long. Just my excuse. Boxes of supplies, nothing useful here. Nothing useful. So here's where we're gonna get something really scary. And why is this locked? Is someone in there? So this is where the true horror begins, where we find out that the only reason that the developers got this job is because they could emulate the effect from the Silent Hill movie, the transition. So let's grab this combat knife. We get a nurse who is faceless and incredibly sexy, and it just reeks of originality. So I want to point out, this is not a problem with the PC port, this is not a problem with my game or what I'm doing. It's very choppy when in combat. It controls poorly because the game is just poorly optimized, and it caps out at 30 FPS. So let me show you the riveting combat that they added to Silent Hill Homecoming. This is Tom Hewlett's idea. So you notice that she just stood there helplessly as I slashed her to death with a combat knife. About maybe 50 to 75% of the time when you're using the knife, well actually when you're using the knife it's 100% of the time. He actually attacks so fast and so quickly when you use your knife that you will stun lock. And for those who don't know, stun lock is a video game term for your character can attack so fast that the other person gets stunned, and then you can attack before their stun ends, essentially rendering them unable to hurt you. And this game's combat is actually, it gives you a whole bunch of weapons to play with, but throughout the game the best weapon is the knife, and it will always be the knife, because mechanically it's just plain broken. You attack too fast and they didn't take the time to turn it down. So I'm going to be using this knife for almost the whole game because it ensures that I won't die. You'll notice that instead of waiting for me to leave the room and then come back and then possibly respawn to give you that horror idea of maybe they came back to life or went somewhere else like in the other Silent Hill games, I waited about 30 seconds and the enemy just disappeared very slowly along with the blood effects and the blood splatter on the ground. So just really good game design. I mean, the only thing that could have broken the immersion more is if it made a zoop noise and then slowly faded away. But let's see if we can open this door. No way. The transition we saw there is a transition to the other world. Obviously we're in some sort of rusty other world now, like in Silent Hill 1. This Blood and Rust other world has nothing to do with Alex's psyche. It has nothing to do with the protagonist's psyche. It's just because in the movie they use the Blood and Rust because it's used in Silent Hill 1, and it's what scares Alessa. Of course they just don't really understand that, or understand what makes Silent Hill good, or why it functions in the way it does. So they just made it rusty. And really it's not even like a scary rust, it just looks like a poorly made shack, you know. Anyways, we're moving pretty slowly, but I'm just covering the fundamentals of what's wrong with it, and then we'll just point out the fun details along the way. It's just very important that I get this message out there, because people, I hear often that Homecoming is the best game besides 1 through 4, and I couldn't disagree more. And I want to point out, actually, that's the a prison sound effect from Silent Hill 2 that was just used. With, you'll hear that clank noise, and then when it closes again, that's the sound effect from the Silent Hill 2 prison when you open a door, or when you go on the transition loading screen. I won't wait the whole time for it to go back, but it's just interesting to note. Oh, I forgot that's locked. We have to go through the formerly locked bathroom stall and squeeze through. Instead of having a tight space for us to experience, maybe zoom in the camera as we go through, as we, with our complete agency. When we just walk forward, it goes automatically into a zoomed-in camera to give the player a immersive, but oh, there's the sound, an immersive but good feeling of claustrophobia. Excuse me. Instead of doing that, they just say squeeze through, and then play a nice animation. So just removing all the players' immersion and agency again. I got the first aid kit. It was a terrible that just looked awful. I'm sorry. Let's see if we can open this door. We can't. So again, oh, I just want to point out, they gave us a hell map. So now that we're in the other world, we got a map that is orange. You know, because orange is scary. You know, okay, whatever. And I just want to point out, I just noticed this. Alchemilla Hospital, Asylum for the Mentally Ill. This is completely ignoring the lore of Silent Hill 1 or Silent Hill 3 or any of these games, really. Silent Hill Origins, because Alchemilla is just a hospital. It's since Silent Hill 1, it's just been a hospital. The sanitarium is Cedar Grove Sanitarium, as we saw in Silent Hill Origins, which is still canon as of this game. But they literally couldn't take the time to just say Cedar Grove Sanitarium or even Brookhaven Hospital, because Brookhaven has the it has, you know, cells for the mentally ill. It has places for the mentally ill, although it's also a functioning normal hospital. They couldn't even take the time to change that, or they just had to say Alchemilla and destroy the lore. That's going to be my big lore gripe throughout the game. They didn't take the time to even double check things for the lore, to the point where even casual fans will notice things that make no sense. We go through this gate. So the gate we just came from, of course we can't go through there. That would be just a little too much freedom of exploration. And even the bathroom door, we can't unlock it from the other side, like in other Silent Hill games. So again, we are going in a completely, we started there, we went through here, only one place to go. It's not an exploration, do I even have to say it? Like, was that supposed to be scary? Whatever. And I have to admit, some of the lighting effects in this game look pretty good. The problem with them is that when you get close enough to a light source, you can see the film grain effect that they put over the screen, which is really just 3 or 4 slides of different, transparent frames with scratches on them. And when you're in a light area, it's so obvious and so bad, there's no way to turn it off, and it's just there the whole time. And it'd be fine if it actually gave the rest of the game a dirty feel, but in the dark, you don't even notice it. So why put it there? Or why not even give it an option to turn it off? It's literally an item in the menu. But in the file configs, all they would have had to do is add a button to the menu. But that was too much work, I guess. The way upstairs is blocked. We can't go any further. I'm going to take a wild guess and say that this lock is broken and I can't open it. And here, you know what? I'm going to say, we'll break the window. And the shatter looks okay. You know, it's not bad. Credit where credit is due. And another credit where credit is due. Some of the framing, occasionally in this game, is done well. Like here. The TV screen you know, and the nurse looking the other way. She's kind of twitching, but then she goes still. This is pretty good. It just sort of melts with the chair, I guess. It stretches very thin. I don't think that's really... Oh, goodness. It just looks so bad. So she had a shadow, I guess. I was incorrect. But it looks so poorly done that I couldn't tell. So let's fight this nurse. And... oh, there's two of them. So they attempt to do the scare effect, you know, the twitchy... cut frames out of the animation scare effect from Jacob's Ladder that is famous because of Silent Hill. And unfortunately they take, instead of blurring it together or making wild contortions like you're meant to do, all they do is remove frames from the animation, which just makes it look, you know, pretty bad. It makes it look choppy. And I always say it's removing frames from the animation, which is actually what makes the, you know, the movement effects. But you actually also have to, you know, as part of the animation, have them move a lot so that it actually looks like a contortion instead of just walking like this. And you also have to blur it together, as seen in Jacob's Ladder with the black guy in the cage twisting his head. That's the famous effect. You have to blur it together, and you also have to do it very fast. These are not done correctly, and it's just very lazily done. When you move it, when they move it, as you can see, it's just very choppy, and it's not scary at all. It just looks goofy. Anyways, we should try and fight them. 2-on-1 is really hard in this game, and it's actually impossible to get into the combat stance unless I hit shift, which is very strange, because you'd think that clicking the attack button would ready you, or even the right mouse button, but you would be incorrect. So as you can see, this nurse just waited her turn while I cut up the other one, and she starts winding up for a slash or two, but my knife is so fast she can't even move. She's stun locked, and I can't stomp on the nurses, and I'm still in my combat phase unless I hit shift again, instead of the, you know, right mouse button. And here we have very scary. He's dead. He's dead. I'm at a loss for words. There's a static TV. The TV... The TV isn't plugged in. How is this possible? So again, this goes back to the good writing and the flavor text. Imagine something like this. In fact, it's done in Silent Hill 2. The TV is on, and in the room where you find the dead body after Pyramid Head leaves, and you hear the scream in the Wood Creek apartment building, and you find the body. And even in other games, they comment, instead of saying, the TV isn't plugged in, how is this possible? To point out, it's just like the developer going, oh yeah, well look at all this hard work we put in. Like, look at this scary thing, notice this, instead of letting you notice that for yourself and actually feeling immersed like you're exploring and in some sort of horror environment, they have to tell you in the most blatant terms possible. It's, you know, like in Silent Hill 2, if you were to look at this, something like this in an earlier Silent Hill game, it would say something like, where's the power cord? Ellipses, you know, something, just a hint or a tad more subtle than the TV isn't plugged in, exclamation point. How is this possible? Hint, hint, supernatural, hint, hint. Goodness gracious, Tom Hewlett. And here's another little squeeze through thing we can do. We're going to plunge our knife into this wall, and again, you can see they have the mouse prompt, they just don't use it for anything except for QTEs. If we click fast enough, we can cut through this. So you can see it's sort of a fleshy teeth thing. You know what, that's interesting. It's symbolism, according to Tom Hewlett, the vagina dentata. And for those who don't know, vagina dentata is the phenomenon, I think it's not actually possible, but it's this horror theme of vaginas having teeth, essentially being afraid of women and afraid of things like that is the idea behind it. Unfortunately, throughout the whole game, there's no reason to believe that Alex has a fear of women, so this is put in here for pretty much no reason at all. And also, I just want to point out, if you were to cut down through this, your knife would get caught on the teeth. But when you cut it apart, whatever. Goodness gracious. And there's a random tree branch. I guess that's scary. I guess. Let me guess, this says old dirty mattress. Oh. It doesn't say anything. So let's save our game because I want to be reminded of what this is for me. Oh yeah, it's a nightmare. Okay. Goodness gracious. There's a note on this bed. She's not here, she's not here, she's not here, and so on. You know what? Fine. It's not a bad note. It just doesn't say anything, really. There's an intense heat coming from this vent. That's fine. You know, it's not bad. Open this. Oh wait, we can't, because that's not the pre-designated path that the developer wants us to take. I forgot. Here we have more gore and blood. Oh, we get a cutscene. I don't even... Oh yeah. This reminds me. You know what really is scary about a Silent Hill game is instead of slowly seeing the monster in the dark and just, you know, kind of figuring out what the symbolism is for yourself, every monster has to have an introduction scene. So instead of letting us figure it out for ourselves, oh yeah, I forgot about this excellent addition where monsters can get on your head and you just have to wait while it sucks your blood until it gives you the prompt to take it off. My god, what happened here? I'm guessing it's the exact same thing that happened to literally everyone else. Also, this guy looks like a ghoul from Fallout. So, I just want to point out, this is to anybody who knows anything about horror filmmaking or writing or making a video game, even musically. If you're doing anything with horror, you want to avoid showing the enemy or the monster or whatever the creature is as much as possible. Not because you're ashamed of what it looks like, but because the fear of the unknown will always in the human psyche trounce the fear of the known. So when you're putting in 30-second to a minute intro cutscenes where you see every detail of the enemy every time you find one, what's there to be afraid of? Because now you know it's just another thing for you to left click until it's dead. It's almost like this game was an experiment to find out what you could do to minimize the player's fear. Like, I've got to be honest, I get more scared playing solitaire than I do playing this. You know, solitaire makes me wet my bed at night compared to this. Lock is broken. Looks to be some sort of key on the other side, but we can't get there. Oh my goodness. I was just thinking about how I was really... how I wasn't scared at all, but then I saw this gore of the exact same body for the 4th or 5th time, and I realized I was scared again. He's dead. It's hard to tell what happened to him, but I don't want to stick around to find out. Okay. Let's grab this really conspicuous health drink. And this looks okay, I'll be honest. This looks good. There are a few good things in this game. I'll point them out when I get to them. The other good thing that right now is the music. The soundtrack in this game is done by Akira Yamaoka. It's a good soundtrack. It's good music. Unfortunately, they underuse it because you can barely hear it throughout most of the game. Well, let's run over here and grab this picture. Joshua's Robbie the Rabbit doll stuffed in his backpack. Robbie the Rabbit, of course, the famous iconic rabbit from the Lakeside amusement park from Silent Hill 3, makes an appearance in Silent Hill 4, and so on. Pretty iconic for the Resident Evil, what am I talking about, Silent Hill series. And Joshua, the first little boy we're chasing, has it all of that. Just worth noting. Broken. The way is blocked, I can't go any further here. Can't open this door. There's only one door in this whole area we can open. It's almost like the game is a bit linear. I don't know, something about it. Let me guess. Oh, this iron lung doesn't have any flavor text. The other two do, but this one wasn't worth it, I guess. There's a patient's chart, schedule of treatment, type electroshock, doctor, Copen. Doctor's signature is required after each entry, and it's all signed. A lot of electroshock. Treatment has yet to achieve desired results. Patient is non-responsive. Please administer period foods only. Period. This way is blocked. I can't get through. Okay. So we're being sort of headed right down to this little arena, and now we have to drop down. Looks like there's 3 nurses down there. Alright, so let's try and fight these ladies. Let's hit shift to go into ultra combat mode. Thankfully the other nurse will wait her turn while I stunlock her friend. And I want to point out, they did add damage effects to the game, so you can see the damage on the enemies. It's these little red slashes you see. Unfortunately, they are the same whether you use a pipe or an axe or a knife. And also, it just looks like someone took a red paintbrush. It doesn't look like a cut. It doesn't have any, parallax or effects to make it look three-dimensional or gashed or deep in any way. It's just a red color effect. Here is, my god, what are they doing here? Another body that's cut in half, except a different way. We're going to see this exact model a lot throughout the game, so just remember it. Like, why couldn't they just make these items static? Because there's nothing scary or cool about bad physics. And when you're bumping into slamming these things and carrying them around with you, it just looks silly. There's a red light bulb in here. Nothing scary about it, I guess, because we can't read the flavor text. A door with a padlock, chained shut. We have nothing in our inventory, so we can't do anything about that. But thankfully we can cut through this vagina dentata. And we can squeeze through. Some sort of pipe is broken. Okay. I'm just testing out the sound. It has a very bad surround. Hey, here's the other half of that guy. That's the other half of the body from downstairs. I wonder who put him here. His hand is holding a key of some sort. Let's take it. Operating theater key. Cool. So again, the most derivation there is from linearity is going slightly out of the way to the left, going and grabbing a key item, then running back over and using it to go back on the linear path. The door is unlocked. Let's go through. Okay. Oh, you have to back up to trigger the prompt again. I'd feel helpless if I was put in one of these. And this looks to be this would be the operating theater that we started out in at the very beginning of this level. So this is the same iron lung we saw earlier. There's another note. Setting the electroshock machine beyond the seizure threshold has yielded impressive results in the patient. The most violent and depressed patients are rendered completely docile. The only side effects have been minor memory loss, dislocated bones, fractured leg, and a patient bit off his tongue. This accident was quite a nice side effect, as this particular patient was also one of our noisiest. I've instructed the doctors to continue with this intensity level for all treatments. So, highly illegal. Not even like a hush-hush corruption like we get a hint of in a note in the Brookhaven Hospital in Silent Hill 3 of the hospital director is grabbing women and just groping them, and being generally a bad person. We get a hint of it, and this one is straight up, we're just mistreating the patients. Wait, I think I saw something on the ground. Random items are so bright that it's hard to tell what is wanted and what is not.
Joshua, is that you?
I'm busy. Go away.
What are you doing here?
I don't know why my cursor's here. Oh, okay. So here's our riveting, our dialogue sections, which don't affect the game at all. How did you get here, or are you afraid? Let's say, how did you get here?
Someone brought me here. They told me Robbie was here. They lied.
I want to help you. I don't think I can help you. Let's say I want to help you.
Anything I can do?
Fine, Robbie. I want my toy.
I haven't seen any toys around here.
Guess you're not my friend.
Okay, I'll go see if I can find him.
Okay. So I just want to point out that we're going to be chasing this kid, Joshua, through almost the entire game. And right off the bat, if you were a human being, you already hate this kid. Because he's not like, oh, thank you for going to find my toy, I'm so sad I miss him. He's, I want Robbie. And Alex says, I don't know if I can find him. And he says, I guess you're not my friend. And he's so full of spite. He's such an angry little shit. So, our character's motivation is to help this little shit that we as the player don't care about and actually actively despise. As opposed to, I got a letter from my dead wife, I want to find out what's going on. Or, you know, something strange is going down and I have to get home to my dad, and, you know, something goes wrong and I gotta get revenge, and, or, you know, my daughter is lost. Instead, it's just straight up, or I'm locked in my room and I'm trying to find a way out, supernatural things are happening. Our motivation is, this little kid is named Joshua and he's mean to us, so we should help him. So this door will open, so I bet this won't. Of course. Okay. Let's check this note. Missing patient bulletin. Room 205, patient went missing. Last seen in the day room after a confrontation with another. Rest of the message is blurred and illegible. Intriguing. Awful. So let's grab this health drink and save the game. Okay, so I'll be right back. I'm going to cut the video. I'm going to go tell my dog to stop barking.